This is Girls Stop Playing, a weekly show that empowers Black women to stop playing with their potential so they can live a life that they love. I'm Coriel, your favorite homegirl, and I'm on a mission to help Black women make the money and get the honey. You can have it all as long as you're willing to work. Welcome back to another episode of the Girls Stop Playing podcast. It's your favorite homegirl, Coriel, here to encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. You already know that I'm bringing you the information and the conversations to help you make the money and get the honey. You can have it all as long as you are willing to work. And today we have a special working woman in the building. For those of you who are like me and you might be in the canna-closet, or you might be a little canna-curious, this is definitely going to be a conversation worth tapping into. So go ahead right now, hit the pause button, share this episode with a friend, grab your notebook, grab a cocktail or some tea because we are about to get into this cannabis conversation. We have Dr. Demetria Bates joining us on Girl Stop Playing. We are beyond excited to tap into your wealth of wisdom. So thank you for joining us on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about cannabis. That's what I love to do anyway.
Yes. So we first met almost a year ago now in Denver. We were on a cannabis field trip. Shout out to Q Nicole with WH Farms, and that was our point of connection, and we've been connected ever since. And I've been able to learn more about what you do as a nurse practitioner in this space, and so I wanted to bring you onto the show so that we could kind of demystify and destigmatize this conversation around cannabis. So I would love for you to start by just talking about what made you want to get into the cannabis side of nursing?
As like you said, I am a nurse practitioner. And so during COVID, the pandemic, everything just shut down, so a lot of people started having anxiety and didn't know that they were having anxiety. I started noticing, increase in writing a lot of control medications or prescriptions for clients, whether it was for anxiety or for sleep or for pain, just having these issues, but then at the same time, they're having side effects from these medications. And I'm like, it has got to be something better than that. And so, since I'm a nurse practitioner licensed in Virginia, it did become legal back in July of like 2021. And so I was like, it must be something to this. All these other states, are becoming legal, and now Virginia even deciding to do that. So I was like, okay, well, let me just be open minded and learn about it, because I've been in healthcare. I'm a veteran, so it's always been taught that it's wrong. Even growing up as a child in school, DARE program, it's wrong, it's bad. You're just getting high, you're hallucinating. It's just not good for you. And so I was like, look, it's legal now. I might as well just be open minded to it and learn about it. And so I did. I went to Cannabis Coaching Institute and I became a certified cannabis educator. And from there, I've just been going down the rabbit hole of wanting to learn more about it.
I love that we're able to have this conversation from a medicinal standpoint because I do think that the stigma of like being a weed head or like, Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, the how high, kind of movie when we were younger, like those are the stereotypical ways that people look at canna consumers. And I think that having you here as a professional, as a connoisseur, as an educator, I think can definitely help to destigmatize the conversation. And I think as more states legalize and decriminalize cannabis, then people are willing to be more open minded. Because if we're honest, I don't know what the statistics are. So let me not put a number out there, but a lot more people have tried cannabis than have not tried cannabis. I think that the legality of it is what really keeps people from talking about it. It keeps people from wanting to share about it. It keeps people from being open and honest about it because it's illegal. But nobody is shy about, going to happy hour. Nobody is shy about consuming cocktails. Nobody is shy about popping prescription pills. Nobody is shy about these other drugs, so to speak, that can have potentially even more harmful impact. And so I love that you mentioned, your personal experience of just seeing all of these other options being prescribed and people looking for help. And then you're able to find this natural alternative. Can you talk a little bit about the harmful effects of some of those more popular prescription options? And then we can talk about like the benefits of choosing cannabis.
Well, when it comes to, like medications like Adderall, these are like stimulants. So, people are becoming addicted to it because, they like that it's, yes, it's helping them focus and all these other things. However, it's giving them that energy. It making them, feel good like all the time. And it's like, well, the main focus should just be utilizing it just for that, for focus. Or if you have like opioids, opioids is good for like acute pain, maybe 5 to 7 days worth. But then after that, even research is showing like opioids is not good for chronic pain. So people who have like arthritis and all that, they're on, I don't know, from oxycodone to hydrocodone, all of them, and they're taking up to like 10 milligrams 4 times a day. And now you're talking about increasing risk for like dizziness. And now that's increasing, especially like older people, increased nervous for falls. And it's just constipation. It just, the list just keeps going on and on. Even, sleeping medications, different sleep aids, is not good for people at all. So, no, I was just like, no, I would prefer more. Hey, let's take a natural route, a natural supplement, something that's just not going to cause other like detrimental or addicting type, effects.
Yeah, I while you were speaking, I was even thinking about like the legal limits of, driving under the influence, whether it's alcohol or any type of influence. But how is that even measured, or can it be measured with prescription medicine? Because to your point, if you're taking a pill multiple times a day, that narcotic or whatever is in your system for the entire day. So while we're out here, on high alert for like drunk drivers, there could also be like overly prescribed people behind the wheel of, vehicles as well. And they're completely, overlooked or counted out of these conversations when all of these are influences, that you could potentially be under, but we've just normalized going to the doctor, getting a prescription, taking a pill. And we've also normalized the lifestyle of popping pills. I often reference my experience working as a pharmacy tech when I was in college, and I would see these little old ladies coming in there spending $800 every single month for maintenance medicine, not anything that they were ever expected to get off of. And so these are, when we talk about people sitting around smoking weed all day, it's like, okay, yeah, but if you're popping a pill, every 4 hours or every 6 hours or whatever, then you are technically high all day too. So how does that work, doctor?
I wish I had an answer for that because, like I said, if you're taking these medications and you're set, for instance, like I don't know, even the opioids, taking pain medication, taking that 4 times a day, most people it causes them to be sedated, and then the thought of them really getting behind the wheel, there's really no measurement. It's just more of educating the my patients and like, hey, hey, if you're going to take this medication, don't do it when you're driving, or using heavy machinery, or different things like that. And that's the only thing I can do is just educate. It's not like I gotta say, hey, they're gonna pull you over if this happens. No.
So when it comes to education, because as like the general public is being more open-minded and, embracing this new treatment, how have your patients and see I want to ask you, how have your patients taken to your recommendation? But then I also know that you work specifically with like providing recommendations to people who come, specifically for these recommendations. So for the people who are not necessarily coming to you for this recommendation, when you are encouraging them to consider something outside of a traditional prescription, are they open to it? Do they still have like fear or stigma attached to it?
I would say majority of people that are coming to me actually want something different, because they don't like to take a lot of pills. And then a lot of people that I approach, I have a toddler, I have a 3-year-old, and we're at the playground, and I can, I shouldn't be assessing other people's kids, just sitting around observing. But hey, while he's playing, this is what I do. But it might be a mom who has a kid who has autism, and I go like, oh, okay. I can kind of just see some of the things that he's displaying, as far as characteristics and whatnot. Like, okay, this kid most likely might be autistic, and I'll just start bringing up the conversation amongst the parents. I don't care, and then they'll be like, yeah, how did you know? And then they'll, or some people will be like, yeah, they started CBD, with their kid. They're in these like little groups over here, on Facebook, trying to figure out other alternative methods to help their children. So I don't know. For some odd reason, just like-minded people, they just normally attracted to me, and we start having that conversation about cannabis. I haven't had too many as far as pushback is concerned, because like I said, a lot of people are really at that point in their lives where they're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It must be something better than this.
And I think even for people who are super closed-minded or super conservative or who are raised in, very religious households and just have this negative association to cannabis, even if it's hard for you to say, okay, I'm not about to go get me a medical card, I'm not about to smoke weed or do a topical or whatever. If you have a child that has some type of medical issue, you are willing to try everything under the sun. I don't care what kind of stigma comes. I'm willing to try whatever I can to give my child some type of relief, some type of healing. And so I do think for a lot of people, once you become a mother, and your kids may have different needs, that's when the conversation can sometimes come up as well. And I want to get into CBD and the uses for kids, because a lot of moms are listening to this, and I do want to take away the only association with I just want to get high for recreational purposes, because there are a lot of medicinal benefits. But I first would love for you to kind of break down what is the difference between what we know to be marijuana, weed, cannabis, reefer, what your mama probably called it, versus CBD, THC. Like, give us the scientific definition.
Okay. So when it comes to cannabis, or I know a lot of people like to use the term marijuana. I don't, because it's just one, it's a made up term and it's based off of prohibition and whatnot. But marijuana versus hemp, in a sense. Okay, so hemp is mainly, well, one, hemp is federally legal. It is legal in all 50 states, and basically it has less than 0.3% of THC. Where the term marijuana pretty much is just, it is illegal. So, and it's also illegal at the federal level. And then it has more than 0.3% of THC, if that makes sense. It's all under the umbrella of cannabis. So it comes from the cannabis sativa plant, or cannabis indica plant. And so once you break those two down, it's kind of like apples. Like you have apples, and then they break down into, pink lady apples, or green Granny Smith, or the green apples. And so cannabis is basically the same way. You have cannabis sativa, and then it breaks off into hemp, which is basically it is legal, so you can purchase it at Walmart and over the counter, basically. And it has less than 0.3% of THC, where marijuana, on the other hand, is illegal. So it has more than 0.3% of THC.
And the THC is what causes the psychoactive, whatever the feeling, the highness.
All right. And so since you're saying, bringing that up now, I just want to make sure I'm breaking it down in small pieces here. So Under the hemp category is where you're going to basically get your CBD, because CBD is federally legal. You can buy CBD over the counter. It has less than 0.3% based in the United States. Okay. Where with marijuana, that's where, that THC part come in. So it's more than 0.3% of THC. So CBD does not get you high. However, CBD is a great like anti-inflammatory. It's definitely a great mood booster. But when you talk about THC, yes, THC can still do those things. However, it is the one that gives you that euphoria. It gives you that high, that body high. It's the one that gives you the munchies that most people, may talk about when they utilize cannabis. Yes.
But when we're speaking in reference to children, pets, even, we are referencing CBD and not THC, just for understanding for the rest of our conversation, because I want to get into the medicinal uses for women and then for for women and for moms, like for kids, what kids can use it for. Because I remember, I think it was some TV series where there was a woman who basically was using CBD for her child. I think she was using gummies or something. The girl went to school and ended up telling her friend about the gummies, and it was this huge thing amongst, the parents, because the parents were in an uproar that one of the moms was giving her kids quote unquote drugs. And even though this was TV, I could definitely see this being a real scenario where you're judging what somebody else is doing with the lack of information or with misinformation based on like what the media portrays. So what are some real benefits to CBD for children?
Okay. Well, usually with kids, I see those who have like autism, those who have seizures, is something else I see. And even maybe ADHD, or having that hyper activity is what I see when it comes to children, majority of the time.
And so the CBD for them is going to have almost like a calming effect, basically, for their
Mhm.
overactivity or
Right.
hyperactivity.
Right. And then
Okay. And then, oh,
with
go
the
ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. And then obviously with the seizures, it's helping them hopefully not have as many or hopefully none at all. Because I don't know if people knew about, Charlotte's Web. That's where that CBD pretty much came from. That booming part of the business is because Charlotte was a little kid who had, just irretractable seizures, and then they started giving her, CBD to help her with that. And she did pretty well on it. And that's why also too the FDA decided to formulate a synthetic form of CBD, and which is just another pill form. It's nice that they have these things, but I really do believe in just whole plant medicine, just using cannabis for what it is versus trying to make it into something that is not. But I'm thankful, yes, the FDA wanted to approve this. So yeah.
So that's CBD for children. When it comes to adults and medical recommendations. So the process in states where it is legal for medical use, a patient has to come in and see a doctor, nurse practitioner, someone who has the authority to be able to say, okay, you have a legitimate reason for needing this recommendation, and then you get a medical card. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how the process works. What are some of the legitimate reasons why people could request a medical card? Like, what are some uses that adults, could experience?
Okay. Well, I know in Virginia, it's basically up to the providers. So it's up to our clinical decision, basically. But I know other states, they do have qualifying conditions. And so people who have like fibromyalgia, migraines, cancer, HIV, pretty much more terminal illness, just depending on, like I said, the state that you're in. But I know in Virginia, I've had people who coming in for like just anxiety or ADHD, definitely pain. Pain is number one. I feel like I'm getting a lot of pain and actually cancer right now. is what I'm starting to see. People who have osteoarthritis, peripheral neuropathy, especially if you have diabetes or if it's induced because of some other medication that you were on. People who have like irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know, the list can get long. But I would definitely have to, of course, assess the patient and figure out what's going on, because you could even learn how to utilize cannabis intentionally, even to help you with like appetite regulation, because there are certain strands or certain benefits of the plant that could help, decrease the appetite and maybe help you on your weight loss journey. So it's like just diving deeper on like, okay, what are you wanting to utilize cannabis for?
And so, aside from just smoking, what are some of the other ways that you can get the same benefits of cannabis?
Love this question, because that's the thing. That's what people think now, is that you have to always smoke cannabis. And it's like, no, there's other ways. So there are what we call oil infusions. Usually we call them tinctures, but I know herbalists will get after me right now if they hear me call it a tincture, because tinctures are alcohol based. But what's in the stores, in the dispensaries, are oil based. So I'm just going to call it the oil infusions. Or you can take, which is basically medication that you could take sublingually, so like under your tongue. Other ways you can do topicals, whether it's a lotion, a cream, pain balm. You can do patches, is another way that you can utilize cannabis. Other than that, suppositories, so it's other ways. And of course, edibles, got to throw that in there. Chocolate bars, gummies, anything you can think of. Even some places even have nasal sprays. So, yeah.
Interesting. And one of the things that I learned when I was producing a cannabis podcast was the pet conversation. So we actually had a young lady who developed like a pet line of CBD products, and she was talking about how she would do like these dog walks, and they would literally be able to tell the difference from how their dog was acting when they got there versus how their dog's mood just literally changed from the CBD. And that blew my mind. I'm not a pet person, so this never crossed my mind. It just never came up for me. But to hear that it could have such a great effect on, pets too, that to me just completely takes away any type of question, because it's one thing to say, well, you just want to do it because so you can get high. But if you can literally visually see the difference in a child or in a dog, like it's kind of undeniable. And so I love that, people are more open to these conversations. People like you are creating platforms where you're able to answer questions and, have more of these conversations. So I would love to talk more about the canna-curious podcast. What is your mission? What made you want to start it? And what are some of the types of conversations that people can look forward to you having?
Yes, I am that canna-curious NP. So yes, I love. I don't know, when it came to putting this podcast together, um, I just felt like it encompassed all of me, because obviously I am queer, I am a lesbian, and then I'm in the cannabis field. So I just use some play on words, canna-curious. Like, why not? But basically, it's my mission is to truly de- destigmatize and normalize the plant, but also break down the stigma when it comes down to LGBT issues too. So, on my podcast, we basically discuss the intersectionality of the both of them, along with the issues that come up in our space. Um, but we are definitely, all inclusive podcast. We love just talking about from medical conditions to just giving yourself grace, because you've been taught for so long that this plant is bad, it's wrong for you. But then at the same time, it has a lot of medicinal effects. And then on the LGBT side, a lot of people don't know about medical legalization. Basically, came off of the LGBT people back because of during the time of the AIDS epidemic out in California. It was Dennis Perron. He's kind of known as like the grandfather of medical cannabis amongst us in our community. And he was a gay guy. He had his husband. His husband ended up contracting, the AIDS virus. And so he and some other people, they basically put together like Proposition 215, which later on passed in California as Proposition 64 to legalize medical cannabis. And ever since then, it's just been trickling on and on. But yeah,
So where can we tune into your podcast?
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and definitely on YouTube if you want to watch us versus just listening only.
So I will make sure that we link all of that information below. But one question that I just thought of that I have to ask you before I let you go, because I think it's so important to make sure we are making informed choices. Earlier, you mentioned that the FDA is coming out with like synthetic CBD pills for kids. And that made me think about Delta 8 and all of the things that they sell at the smoke shops in states where it is not legal or decriminalized or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about what Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 20,000, whatever it is, what all of those actually are, and how you feel about them, if they're safe? What's your recommendation?
So, what's actually naturally produced in the cannabis plant is Delta 9. Okay. I mean, yes, there are tidbits of like Delta 8 and Delta 10, Delta 11. All of these, of what I'm saying, are just what we call cannabinoids. And cannabinoids are actually naturally produced in our bodies because we have a system called the endocannabinoid system. And I know we didn't touch on that because I can go into that as well. But all these different acronyms and letters that we're saying, you know, these are naturally produced in the plant. However, when it comes to Delta 8 is a more synthetic because, like I said, these things are pretty much minute within the cannabis plant. And so they have to extract it so much from the cannabis through a different, different processes of trying to get this oil out. And by doing that, they add in like hexane and butane and all these other toxic chemicals is needed. And so when you actually take in Delta 8, it's more of an exaggerated response versus if you were just taking true natural Delta 9 or that little minute Delta 8 within the cannabis plant from the whole plant when it's grown versus them extracting it to make this Delta 8 stuff.
So Delta 8 is the processed meat of cannabis.
Yeah.
That's wow. So that's why when you see people, if y'all have ever, and this does happen with like regular, gummies off the street, but when I have heard people saying like I had to go to the hospital and I just had this crazy reaction, when I investigate a little bit further, it be those Delta 8, Delta 9, what you done bought from that store that then sent you to the hospital. Keep it natural, y'all. Keep it natural. What are
Very
we doing here?
Very much so, because I'm not gonna lie, that's where my cannabis journey slightly started was trying the Delta 8 gummy. And like after 3 days, I had so much acid reflux and whatnot. No, thank you. It was a
Yeah.
no for me. But I know, like, if I use the actual whole plant medicine, it actually helps my reflux. So I can definitely tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that is like natural made versus man made. The man made version is always gonna have those additives, those extra side effects, all of that stuff they didn't plan for or could not, prepare or prevent. I have enjoyed this conversation, y'all. I am slowly but surely like opening up the door to my canna-closet. I don't know when I'm going to fully just come on out. I don't know. I feel like when I come out of the cannabis closet, it's going to set me free, but I'm still in here. I'm not ready yet.
What,
So for
what's holding
y'all,
you back?
I live in Georgia and we're decriminalized. We're not legal. I think it's still that legal thing. If I lived in like California code would be living a totally different life than ATL code. ATL code, I just got to live different, but Florida has it on there. Um, like, it's on the bill this year, for them to legalize. So I'm like, come on, Georgia, what is going on? But that probably has a lot to do with it. I mean, people who know me, obviously in real life, it's not a secret, but I'm not out here like smoking weed on the internet or nothing crazy. I haven't crossed that line, but I don't even talk about it. I don't even have these conversations. This is like the second conversation I've had on my podcast. And I really feel like I got to let go of that. I don't know. Is it shame? A little bit of shame under there? I
Well,
don't know what that little.
I'm not sure what the laws are in. I mean, I understand. Yes, it's obviously like a pro-hip state, but I still feel like they have medical. there now or no?
No, they do. They do. I'm just saying why I think it's still that subconscious, like, ooh, don't be telling people. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes,
By
the
the time this comes
stigma,
out, I might be smoking weed on the internet. We'll see. I don't know. But
stigma
I
got a hold of me.
appreciate you. Yes, yes, yes. I appreciate you for being here, for sharing all of this wisdom. I'm going to make sure that I drop the link to your website as well for anybody who happens to be in Virginia and need a little recommendation. They can slide your way to get that medical card. I'll make sure that I link everything down below. You make sure you follow Dr. Demetria Bates on Instagram. I appreciate y'all for tapping in, tuning in. Hit the subscribe button, and I will catch you next week.